You're listening to the Telltale Channel. If you like what I do and you want to see me continue to do it, don't forget to check out my Patreon. I just finished writing a book titled Was Hitler an Atheist? It talks about religions during the Third Reich and how they work together. Catholics, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Protestants. And I even address the lies told by the evangelical world about Bonhoeffer. It's on Audible and Amazon. Jehovah's Witnesses have a story they tell about the Holocaust. It goes like this. Innocent pacifists were rounded up by the Nazis, thrown into concentration camps, tortured for refusing to say Heil Hitler, and they stood firm. Purple triangles on their uniforms, beaten, starved, some of them executed. They never broke. That story is mostly true, for the members. But there's a chapter the organization skips, or even literally completely rewrote, on their website. In 1933, the president of the Watchtower Society, Joseph Rutherford, wrote a letter to Hitler praising the Third Reich. He released a public document blaming Jews for the world's problems. He held a convention in a building covered in swastikas that opened with a song to the tune of the German national anthem. And when none of it worked, when Hitler ignored him, he abandoned the man on the ground who was actually trying to protect people. The persecution was real, but the appeasement was also real. Let's get into it. On June 24, 1933, Jehovah's Witnesses were banned in Prussia, a German state at the time. The Nazi government accused them of being Marxists, which is obviously super true. In all seriousness, Jehovah's Witnesses don't vote. They don't serve in the military. They don't run for office. They don't even stand for the national anthem. There's no political ideology there. There's just a religion that largely wants to be left alone to knock on doors and hand out magazines. But the Nazis didn't care about accuracy. They cared about control. And Jehovah's Witnesses wouldn't fall in line. They wouldn't give the Hitler salute. They wouldn't participate in elections. In the November 1933 election, 95% turnout, open ballots, block wardens who knew every person on their street. Some witnesses left their ballots blank, which was a religious risk in itself. Some didn't show up at all, which was the theologically correct decision, according to the organization. Their businesses were vandalized. One man, a saddler, had his shop walls scrawled with, "Herein lies traitor X, do not enter." His business was destroyed. That's what happened to you if you didn't vote for Hitler. By November 1933, every opposition party had been banned. There was one name on the ballot, Hitler's. You could mark the circle or leave it blank. The vote was supposed to be secret, but it wasn't. The brown shirts and the SS stood guard at polling places. After you voted, they sold you a 2-cent aluminum button that said, "Ja, 1933. If you didn't have that button by the end of the day, people came looking for you. 95% turnout. Block wardens knew every person on their street. They knew who was likely to cause problems. They knew who didn't show up. I'm sure people probably recognize the contemporary significance with discussion about ICE showing up to polling places. So the ban comes down, and Rutherford has a decision to make. Does he resist? Does he tell his people to stay awake, stand firm, and grow mighty? No. He tries to make a deal. One day after the ban, one day, Rutherford organizes a convention in Berlin. June 25th, 1933. The venue is the hall called Wilmersdorfer Tennishallen, and when witnesses arrived, the building was covered in swastikas. The organization's defense is that the flags were left over from a Nazi rally a few days earlier. An SS event had used the hall that Wednesday. Fine, but nobody took them down. That's a choice. A choice they wouldn't make today. They'd find another venue. The convention opened with Song 64 from the Jehovah's Witness songbook, Zion's Glorious Hope. The melody was the same melody used in the German national anthem, composed by Joseph Haydn in 1797. Deutschland, Deutschland über alles. Jehovah's Witnesses' defense is that the song had been in their songbook since at least 1905. And that's true. But when witnesses walked into a swastika-covered building and started singing to the tune of the German national anthem, it didn't matter what the words were. It mattered what it looked like and what it sounded like. Konrad Franke, a Bethel branch overseer, was there. He described the scene later. Quote, "Can you imagine how we felt? Many could not join in the singing. It was as though their throats were throttled. What kind of leaders did we have who brought us into such dangers? Instead of helping and supporting us, so that we could take a fearless stand against Nazism. What kind of leaders did we have?" That is not an outsider's criticism. That's a witness who was in the room. During the convention, Rutherford released a document called the Declaration of Facts. Copies were sent to high-ranking Nazi officials and distributed to the public. Later, it was published in the 1934 yearbook, so this isn't some obscure footnote. They printed it in their own literature. And the content is exactly as bad as you imagine. By the way, most of this information can be found on their website or in their literature. They address the main beats of the era. Check out this quote from the Declaration of Facts, published in their yearbook and passed out at the convention that year. Quote, "It's been the commercial Jews of the British American Empire that have built up and carried on big business as a means of exploiting and oppressing the peoples of many nations." That's from a Jehovah's Witness publication in 1933, blaming Jews for global economic oppression in Germany while Hitler was in power. It gets worse. Just a reminder, I would really appreciate it if you guys checked out my Patreon. If you're not going to donate, you don't have to, but follow me there at the very least. owenmorgan.com/Patreon. Just in case something happens with the government or whatever. It would be really good if you had some way to connect with me and my content. I'm really concerned about that, and maybe you should consider that for other creators too. Quote, "Instead of being against the principles advocated by the government of Germany, we stand squarely for such principles and point out that Jehovah God through Christ Jesus will bring about the full realization of these principles." End quote. By June 1933, the principles advocated by the German government weren't ambiguous. The Reichstag had burned. The Enabling Act had passed. Jews were being boycotted and attacked in the streets. The Aryan paragraph was law. Rutherford looked at all of that and said, "We agree with you." Quote, "A careful examination of our books and literature will disclose the fact that the very high ideals held and promulgated by the present national government are set forth in and endorsed and strongly emphasized in our publications." End quote. He's telling Hitler that Watchtower literature already supports Nazi ideals. Think about what that means for every Jewish convert sitting in the convention hall. Your religion just told the government that persecutes you that it shares the government's high ideals. As an ex-Jehovah's Witness, I can tell you the organization demands total loyalty from its members. And in the moment, it offered none back. Not to the Jewish converts, not to the German witnesses who are about to suffer horrifying atrocities. The leadership sold them out to try to save the institution. Rutherford also wrote directly to Hitler. The letter calls the Watchtower Society, quote, "pro-German in an exemplary way," unquote. He brags that their magazines were the only American publications that refused to run anti-German propaganda during World War I. He praises the Reich's high ethical goals and ideals. Hitler ignored the letter. The ban stayed. Nothing changed. So on February 9th, 1934, Rutherford wrote a second letter with a different approach. Quote, "You may successfully resist any and all men, but you cannot successfully resist Jehovah God," unquote. He demanded that the witnesses be allowed to worship freely by March 24th, 1934. He threatened to publicize Germany's treatment of witnesses to the entire world. Letter 1, "We agree with your principles. We're on your side. Please leave us alone." Letter 2, "God will destroy you." The first approach didn't work, so he tried threats. Both are embarrassing. Neither worked. Hitler ignored the second letter just like he ignored the first. Rutherford followed through on the threat. Jehovah's Witnesses launched a worldwide telegram campaign. Thousands of telegrams from the US, Canada, Britain, Switzerland, Scandinavia, France, and the Netherlands. A plenipotentiary advisor named Karl Wittisch was in the room when Wilhelm Frick handed Hitler a stack of the telegrams. Frick said, "If the witnesses do not fall into line, we will employ the most severe measures against them." Hitler jumped to his feet and said, "This mob will be exterminated in Germany." Wittisch spent the next 7 years in Sachsenhausen, Flossenburg, and Mauthausen. He confirmed later Hitler's rage was not a vain threat. While Rutherford was writing letters from New York, a man named Paul Balzerite was actually on the ground in Germany trying to keep people alive. Balzerite had run the German branch since 1920. When the ban came down, he made a reasonable decision. He stopped the door knocking. The evangelizing work was illegal. Getting caught meant arrest. He was trying to protect people under his care. Rutherford, from the safety of New York, told him to continue the door knocking anyway. Let's talk about who Rutherford was as a person. There's a story from William Schnell's book about a dinner in 1923 while Balzerite asked Rutherford for a new rotary press. Rutherford looked at Balzerite's beard, which he wore in the style of Rutherford's predecessor, Charles Taze Russell, and said, "I will buy you that press if you take that thing off." Balzerite shaved the beard. That's the person making the decisions for thousands of people in Nazi Germany. He used leverage to get what he wanted, an authoritarian. Balzerite was arrested in May 1935. At his trial in December, he testified honestly. He said he didn't support door knocking while under ban. Rutherford's response was to publicly excommunicate him. He published an open letter to all German witnesses saying the society, quote, will put forth no effort looking to release them from prison, even if it had the power to do anything, unquote. A man is in a Nazi prison because he's a Jehovah's Witness, and the president of the religion says publicly, we won't help him, even if we could. After completing his prison sentence in 1937, Balzerite was immediately rearrested and sent to Sachsenhausen concentration camp. Guards called him Beelzebub, the name of a demon, to mock him. He was forced at gunpoint to stand in front of the camp and read a statement affirming Jehovah's Witnesses' loyalty to the Third Reich. After 4 years of imprisonment and torture, he signed the renouncement document in 1939. He was finally released, but not until they tortured him for a few more months. Half the time, they didn't even release Jehovah's Witnesses who signed the forms. It was just another method of psychological torture. Rutherford praised Hitler. Rutherford blamed Jews. Rutherford threatened Hitler. And when the man who was actually there, the man trying to protect people, made a judgment call, Rutherford cut him loose and literally left him to die. I don't want the leadership's failures to overshadow what happened to people in the camps, because the suffering was real. They were given purple triangles, patches sewn on their clothing to identify them. They were the only concentration camp prisoners who could theoretically walk out by signing a document renouncing their faith. Most refused. That makes him unique among every category of prisoner in the system. In one case, they brought a group of Jehovah's Witnesses out to a wall in the camp. One of the guards was holding the documents at the end of the line. They told him to sign the renouncement document. When they said no, they pulled one out of the group, put him against the wall, and shot him in the head. Some signed, some didn't, and none of them can be blamed for it. There's a story told by Wolfgang Langhoff, an actor who was imprisoned as a political dissident. He wrote about a fellow inmate, a witness named Frank. Frank wouldn't say Heil Hitler. The guards beat him. Solitary confinement. He came back with swollen black eyes. He still wouldn't salute. They beat him again. 2 weeks of solitary. He came back unrecognizable. He wouldn't raise his arm. They took him to the courtyard and 5 SS guards beat him until he lost consciousness. When he finally came out of solitary that last time, he walked into the barracks, stopped at the door guard, and raised his arm. His hand was coated in dried blood. He murmured, Heil Hitler. The historian Hans Hess wrote, we can only add with humility that he was only a man, but what a man. Everybody has a breaking point. In my opinion, Jehovah's Witnesses are not to blame for raising their hand and saying Heil Hitler, or signing the document. The SS set out to destroy people physically and psychologically. They stripped away everything, dignity, autonomy, and humanity, until survival was the only thing left. The members who went through it didn't fail. The leadership that put them in that position failed. And they continue to fail today by building that into the culture. If you deny Jehovah, you won't make it into paradise. And we define what denying Jehovah looks like. If you go to a camp and somebody beats the shit out of you every day for 6 months, if they cut your fingers off, if they hang you from a pole by your arms tied behind your back, and they push you every now and then to give you a swing, and you sign the document to end the literal torture, you are dead to us and to Jehovah, and to your family. Everybody has a breaking point. Every single person. I don't believe they won't get into heaven because they broke, as anybody would. I don't think they'll go to heaven because there isn't one. Holocaust survivor Elie Wiesel describes a scene while he was in Auschwitz. One day, we came back from work. We saw 3 gallows rearing up in the assembly place. 3 black crows. Roll call. SS all around us. Machine guns trained. The traditional ceremony. 3 victims in chains, and one of them, the little servant, the sad-eyed angel. Total silence throughout the camp. On the horizon, the sun was setting. "Bare your heads!" yelled the head of the camp. His voice was raucous. We were weeping. "Cover your heads!" Then the march past began. The 2 adults were no longer alive. Their tongues hung swollen, blue-tinged. But the 3rd rope was still moving. Being so light, the child was still alive. For more than half an hour, he stayed there, struggling between life and death, dying in slow agony under our eyes. And we had to look at him full in the face. He was still alive when I passed in front of him. His tongue was still red. His eyes were not yet glazed. Behind me, I heard the same man asking, "Where is God now?" And I heard a voice within me answer him, "Where is he? Here he is. He's hanging here on the gallows." That night, the soup tasted like corpses. The organization used the Holocaust as a credibility shield. We suffered under Hitler gets deployed whenever they're criticized. For the shunning, for the blood transfusion policy, for the child abuse cover-ups. And the suffering is real. Nobody disputes that. But suffering doesn't make you right. And it doesn't erase the parts of the history that you'd rather not tell. The leadership praised Hitler. The leadership blamed Jews. The leadership abandoned the people on the ground. The members suffered for it. And that pattern, leadership making decisions from safety while members bear the consequences, didn't end in 1945. It's happening right now. It happened last month when they reversed a blood policy that's been killing people for 80 years and called it a clarification. The rank-and-file witnesses who stood in front of Nazi guards and refused to break deserve to have their story told honestly. All of it, including the parts about the men who put them there. Anyway, that's all I've got for you. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll be right back. Don't forget to check out my Patreon. Also, take a look at my website, oamorgan.com. I just finished writing a book titled Was Hitler an Atheist? It talks about religions during the Third Reich and how they work together. Catholics, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Protestants. And I even address the lies told by the evangelical world about Bonhoeffer. It's on Audible and Amazon. This is Eric Metaxas. He is a die-hard Trump supporter. Do anything for the guy. Talking to a couple of people about Hitler and the churches in Germany under the Nazi regime. This is an area in which I have a lot of expertise. I've written a book about it. I'm in the process of writing another. So I can debunk all of the garbage that he's about to spew.
What happened in Germany, of course, is one of the nightmares of history, an unimaginable nightmare, hell on earth, because of the silence of the church. And the thesis of my book, Letter to the American Church, is that that is precisely where we are today.
That's disgusting for him to have said. I've actually read his book, Letter to the American Church, and it is absolutely psychotic. The church in Germany, silence wasn't really their problem. The problem was that most of them, the vast majority, were in favor of what was happening. And the ones that did speak up, about 3,000 at best, maybe 2,000 pastors out of a total of 18,000, were only fighting for Jews' right to convert to Christianity. They weren't standing up for Jews' rights to not be killed. It was all about their Christian converts. That was the problem in Germany, but okay. But to compare the church today with the church back then in Germany is pure, unadulterated psychosis. I've been doing research into this for my new book called God's People. It's like 16 essays on church figures in Nazi Germany. And I happened across a document from the 1930s. It was written by Arnold Dannenmann, I believe was his name. And he explained that in the lead up to the consolidation of the Nazified Christians into their own kind of movement, their own denomination or whatever, they named themselves the Christian Nationalists. The church in Germany that represented the Nazis named themselves the Christian Nationalists, Evangelische Nationalisten. I believe that's how it's pronounced. Evangelische doesn't mean evangelical. It can translate to a number of different things depending on context. It literally means gospel. Sometimes it's translated to Christian, sometimes it's translated to Protestant, sometimes to evangelical. In this context, I'm comfortable saying it translates to Christian nationalists. The church in the United States has been taken over by the Christian nationalists. The issue, he wants to pretend that he is on the correct side. In Germany, he would have been the Nazified Christian. They even share the same name.
Is that is precisely where we are today. I'm here to say God has no lanes. He owns every lane. And Kuyper said there's not one square inch in all of creation over which Jesus Christ, who is sovereign, does not say mine.
Yes, Kuyper, the guy who named the Kuiper Belt. I believe is who he's talking about. Okay? Like, why do I give a what some dude said who knows how long ago?
Square inch in all of creation, over which Jesus Christ, who is sovereign, does not say mine.
Yeah.
So that every part of the culture, the media, medicine, education, the Lord desires us to bring our faith out of the church and into every sphere in culture. That's what the church is supposed to do. The Lord has called us to a battle, and a battle is a battle. And so when you see forces trying to censor and silence, you say those are the forces of tyranny.
Donald Trump is literally trying to silence people. Are you kidding me with this?
Evil of state-sponsored authoritarianism is dramatic. And this idea that we can take the safe religious path is...
Dude, I don't know who recorded this, but get a better setup. Get my app briefcase. It is way better than this.
Nice path. That's from the pit of hell.
That's from the pit of hell. Anyway, Eric Metaxas actually had like a lot more, even more psychotic to say, believe it or not. Listen to what he says here.
At some point, I think Mr. Trump is going to have to go Abe Lincoln on the Democratic Party.
Abe Lincoln? I'm resisting the Robin Hood Men in Tights joke. You don't know how hard it is for me right now.
Have to go Abe Lincoln on the Democratic Party. He's going to have to declare some kind of a national emergency. He may have to declare the Democratic Party as a seditious outlaw organization.
Not for nothing, but that's exactly what Hitler did. That is exactly what Hitler did. He declared a national emergency and instituted the Enabling Act, which enabled him to write laws like executive orders, basically. Like the executive orders had the force of law in Germany. That was the Enabling Act in 1933, March, I believe. And then he outlawed a bunch of oppositional political parties. You are describing what Hitler did and saying Donald Trump should do it to somebody who claims to be a World War II scholar. He's not. He lies all the way through his book on Dietrich Bonhoeffer from beginning to end. And it's really like clumsy shit too. Like he said, Hitler won his election. No, he didn't. No, he did not. That's just one very basic fact that he got wrong in his book.
By the way, guys, check out my new shop, owenmorgan.com/shop. I have a bunch of really cool designs on there.
And do something about it.
That's crazy talk. No, listen.
That's pretty stringent.
Well, see, here's the thing. Here's part of the larger narrative. We live in a time where stringent is no longer on the table. Like we kind of act like we've evolved past having to do anything
really. Sometimes
dramatic. Well,
sometimes
no, I mean, you know, and I know it's
sometimes times require real action that can't be avoided.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. You know that, and I know that. But we live in a world where people act like we can't go there.
Yeah.
We moved past that.
We might have to go there. I mean, you just wrote a book about the American Revolution. Those people had to go there. They went there because they were compelled to go there because circumstances required them to go there. And it seems to me that circumstances may require Mr. Trump to go to a place where he has to declare certain emergency executive powers to deal with an organization that wants to destroy the country. And
like people to the left of hunting immigrants for sport want to destroy the country in your mind, get fucking help. And for somebody who falsely claims to be a World War II historian, he's not even a historian. He doesn't even have a history degree. He's a journalist at best. He has an English degree. I think an undergrad in English, if I'm not mistaken, which is cool, but it's not a history degree, and he lies all through his histories that he wrote. For somebody who pretends to be a historian about World War II, I can't believe he's not speaking up about somebody literally describing what Hitler did.
And that means probably taking some people off the game board in a very demonstrative way.
Taking people off the game board.
To wonder what that would look like.
Yeah, well, I think it would probably look something like a civil war.
That's psychotic. What is wrong with these fucking people, dude? I mean, there's been an undercurrent in the Republican Party of people trying to push for Democrats being outlawed or banned for a while. This is Richard Harris talking about something similar. Listen to this.
On day one of his administration, Donald Trump declared war on the ungodly woke agenda that was subverting our country into an anti-Christian Marxist state. This November, however...
I'm sorry, I can't let him get away with that. The Democratic Party is in no way, shape, or form Marxist. Not even close.
If Christians don't turn out and vote in record numbers, this incredible list of accomplishments could be brought to a halt.
I'm sorry, can you give me the list?
And even worse, it could be reversed. A Democrat Congress will refuse to back these reforms and will do all in its power to reimpose the Marxist woke globalist, pro-Islamic, pro-devil, frankly, policies and impeach Donald Trump.
Yes, absolutely. I believe all that's going to happen. I don't know if he's going to be impeached. I don't know if he's going to be removed, but he will certainly be neutered. That's for sure. Metaphorically, unfortunately. It's a little late to neuter him physically anyway, like, you know, whatever. Anyway, the point is, these people are living in fear that Democrats are going to come back with a vengeance because they are. And they are now trying to ban the party because they know how absolutely, completely, and totally f***ed they are.
And if the Congress is taken over by the Democrat Party again, it's only going to be because the church stayed home.
Because the church stayed home. No. As we've found out, you know all that moral majority shit that they talked before? It turns out the moral majority is on the left, not the right. I created this website. I call it the Wave Model. It's wavemap.us if you want to check it out. I wrote it in Angular TypeScript. Anyway, I wrote it in TypeScript with Angular. Point is, it shows these sliders along the side, which are standard model sliders for predicting elections. So you've got the generic ballot environment, you got the presidential approval rating, you've got the consumer sentiment, the right direction question. Are we going in the right direction? If, say, 70% of the country says, yes, we're going in the right direction, and there's a Republican in office, and he has high polls and things like that, you can expect the midterms or whatever to swing the way that the polls do. Well, right now, the right direction question is at 36%. 36% think we're going in the right direction. Consumer sentiment is an index, and it's at 56. It's pretty f***ing low, by the way. Presidential approval is showing 42% because that's the aggregate. It may be down now a little bit. But honestly, none of these things really affect the prediction or the whatever as much as these two knobs at the bottom do, which I added. These are not part of the standard model. These are part of the wave model, which I came up with. The Republican mobilization multiplier and the Democratic mobilization multiplier. You can expect Republicans to probably grow 1.05 times what they were last election. You know, young people just turned 18, they registered to vote. It's just how it works. 1.05%. Democrats, on the other hand, in every special election across the country, has seen a 25-point swing. We've seen literally double the number of voters. In Texas, we saw twice as many voters vote in the primary as voted in the general election. In the primary. That is nuts. And what I have here is a conservative estimate that 1.5 times as many Democrats are going to vote in the primaries as last round. If that's the case, we're taking 55 seats in the Senate, we're taking 248 seats in the House, and we're taking 26 governorships. We're going to flip Georgia governor, we're going to flip the Texas governor, possibly. Florida doesn't look like it's ranked to flip the governor, but if we just increase that to what it actually is, it's showing twice as many Democratic voters voting right now. We flip Florida handily. We might even flip Oklahoma. That's how dramatic these past 60 or so elections have been. We might flip Iowa. South Dakota and Oklahoma are toss-ups in this model. That's wild. Okay, they're going to be completely destroyed this election. Those are for the governorships. If we get what I expect, which is double the number of Democratic votes, we might get a 3/5 majority in the Senate, 60 seats to 40 Republican. And as far as the House goes, 319 to 65, if the doubling holds true. Now, I'm not convinced that double votes is going to actually play out exactly, because special elections tend to favor extremes. So if we're seeing, a 25-point flip in special elections, it may be closer to 15 or 20 in general elections because there are more people voting in those. But even at a conservative number, even at 1.5 times as many voters, we still take the House free and clear. We still take the Senate completely. We still take governorships that we wouldn't have otherwise, like Texas. So I guess we'll see what happens.
I just created a new website, firesidewatch.com. You can watch videos with friends, and everybody can play or pause the video. I made it so I could collaborate with other YouTubers, but I figured I might as well make it available to everybody. On top of that, you can add videos to the queue, upvote them, and sort by most upvoted. Give it a look, firesidewatch.com. And while you're at it, check out my Patreon, owenmorgan.com/Patreon. You can follow me there for free.
This is Michael Beckwith, I think, Lieutenant Governor of which state? He is the Lieutenant Governor of Indiana. He's a Christian nationalist nutcase. Listen to him.
We have a wall of separation of church and state, right? That got warped in the 1940s by a Supreme Court justice. His name was Hugo Black. There's a case that came before the Supreme Court. Hugo Black was a KKK member. He hated blacks and he hated Catholics. And he did not like that Catholics were starting to stand up and say, what the KKK is doing to the blacks is not godly.
Oh, you can't be real. You think Catholics were defending black people in the 1940s? Give me a fucking break, brother. Nobody was defending black people in the 1940s. Nobody. During World War II, there were black regiments, like military regiments that were all black, because I think it was segregated at the time. And when America was about to take Italy back from the fascists, the Pope was in communication with America, and he sent a message requesting that black soldiers not be the ones to liberate Rome and Italy more generally, because he believed that they were more prone to taking advantage of women and violence and things. Nobody defended black people in the 1940s. I don't want to hear it. He's acting like the KKK was anti-religion and that they were like left-wing liberal types or some like complete and total delusion.
So he found a way to, in this case, he pulled this letter that was not a founding document. It was a private letter. He says, hey, Thomas Jefferson said separation of church and state. We should make this the standard so that all churches stay out of government policy, which is the opposite of what actually Jefferson was saying. So a Supreme Court justice who was a KKK sympathizer and member who wanted to get the church and godly people out of the way used Jefferson's letter to say, hey, he's a founding father.
Okay, this is a common standard Christian nationalist talking point. Here's the case with this. The case is Everson versus Board of Education, 1947. Hugo Black wrote the majority opinion and quoted Jefferson's 1802 letter to the Danbury Baptists using the phrase wall of separation between church and state. These people like to say separation of church and state is not in the Constitution. And to that I reply, gun rights aren't in the Constitution either, right? The concept behind gun rights is in the Constitution in the form of the Second Amendment, but gun rights aren't there. In the same way, separation of church and state isn't in the Constitution. The concept behind it is in the first sentence of the First Amendment of the Constitution, but separation of church and state isn't there, I suppose. Anyway, Hugo Black wrote the majority opinion and quoted Jefferson's 1802 letter to Danbury Baptists, where he used that famous phrase, wall of separation between church and state. It was the first time the phrase was used in a Supreme Court opinion to interpret the Establishment Clause. It's also true that Black was a member of the KKK, joining in 1923 and resigning in 1925, and that biographers found he sympathized with the group's economic, nativist, and anti-Catholic beliefs. However, here's where he completely bastardizes the entire story. The motive story is backward. Beckwith claims Black used the separation of church and state to silence churches that were standing up against racism. But during his time on the Supreme Court, Black voted to desegregate schools, expand freedom of the press, and help protect housing options for minorities, surprisingly. He joined the unanimous Brown v. Board of Education 1954 decision, striking down racial segregation and called for immediate desegregation in 1969. He joined Shelley v. Kramer in 1948, which invalidated racially restrictive covenants. The man compiled one of the strongest civil rights records on the court, apparently. That's really impressive. I did not know that. Also, the claim about the guy trying to get the church and godly people out of the way. Black's Everson decision actually ruled in favor of allowing public money to reimburse parents for busing kids to Catholic parochial schools. So that whole thing, literally all of it, was completely made up by this guy. The point is, these people will lie until they're blue in the face. They don't care about truth. They will lie and cheat and manipulate and do whatever it takes to destroy Democrats, even if it means banning Democrats outright. Even if that's what it takes to destroy them, they will do it. And it's psychotic and horrifying and disgusting, and these people shouldn't be anywhere near power. Tell me what you think in the comments.
We'll be right back. Don't forget to check out my Patreon. Also, take a look at my website, oamorgan.com. I just finished writing a book titled Was Hitler an Atheist? It talks about religions during the Third Reich and how they work together. Catholics, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Protestants. And I even address the lies told by the evangelical world about Bonhoeffer. It's on Audible and Amazon. Alex Jones claims that Donald Trump helped The Onion buy InfoWars in retaliation against Alex Jones. We're going to look into the claims in a second, but listen to his reaction first.
So it's Monday evening, and in the last few hours, I saw headlines everywhere, trending top of X, that, well, The Onion is to take over InfoWars again and make it a satirical website. They've won it. They own it. A year and a half ago, they announced they owned it. Remember, it was a fraud. There had been no bankruptcy auction. It was all a lie.
That's not true. There was a bankruptcy auction. The Onion did win, but Alex Jones basically appealed and claimed that he was being mistreated nonsensically. So a judge decided we're going to hold the auction again out of fairness. And Alex Jones's supporters, to my understanding, and Roger Stone and some other people, seeing the threat that could unfold, gathered together to purchase InfoWars together, I believe. But we'll get into the facts of the matter in a second. Just keep listening.
This time, there's not even been a court hearing. But backed by Bloomberg and the Democrats, Ben Collins, the former MSNBC censorship czar, has just announced that they're moving in May 1st.
Oh my God, dude. I love everything about this. So it sounds like the judge decided that they were going to hold the hearing again, or the auction again, and The Onion won again. That's what it seems like to me. Here's some info on this from NPR. The Onion has reached a new deal to take over InfoWars, this time through a licensing agreement with the court-appointed receiver, Gregory Milligan, rather than through the failed 2024 bankruptcy auction. Under the terms, The Onion's parent company, Global Tetrahedron, I forgot that was the name they gave their parent company, Global Tetrahedron, would pay $81,000 per month to license the InfoWars domain and associated IP. Wow. The deal needs approval from Judge Maya Guerra Gamble in Austin. Jones is appealing the ruling that put InfoWars under the receiver, which has put a hold on full liquidation. But the licensing deal is a separate mechanism. So bottom line, the auction didn't go through, but The Onion has been allowed to license the IP, whether Jones wants to license it to them or not. But he's the ultimate owner, which ultimately is better because it means that he will be taking in money from The Onion that will be going back out to the families of the Sandy Hook children. So it's not an outright purchase and it's done. It's that they're paying a monthly amount of money that all of the families will get to split. I love that. I love everything about it. That's fantastic.
And it's all through a Texas state judge that ran the show trial a few years ago against me.
No, fucking please. The show trial?
With HBO, fully produced show trial. that she's just saying it's yours, even though it's still on appeal, and legally you can't do that. And I noticed the receiver that she appointed won't pay the electric bill, won't pay any of the bills, even though he gets the money. There's plenty of money to pay the bills. So they're already like suffocating us. And you see the headline on X and everywhere else that, yep, it's theirs.
I mean, no, it's not theirs. That's why they don't pay the bills, because they're licensing the intellectual property and purchasing the domain name, or licensing the domain name. It's still yours, Alex. You still have to pay for all this shit, but they're licensing it and the money goes to the families. That's awesome.
So if there's any justice, that they're going to get in big trouble for this. We're going to file a whole bunch of actions against it. It's just absolutely outrageous that in the year 2026, this type of crap goes on. But President Trump, through Todd Blanche, the Democrat Party lawyer, deputy head of the AG then, now the DOJ head, killed Ed Martin's investigation into their operations, their fake auctions, the DOJ funding the fake lawsuits against me. They have all the documents. They killed that 6 months ago. I didn't blame Trump for that, but I do now blame Trump for coming out and openly endorsing their lawsuits and saying I deserve it, when it was the very same law firms that sued him, Paul.
Okay, just to clarify on this one, here he's talking about the 500-word Truth Central bleat, as opposed to a tweet, the bleat that Trump put out, or the zeet, if it's on X, it's a zeet, I suppose, about how Alex Jones basically deserved it. That was the zeet that he put out. That's not him endorsing the Onion purchasing. You see how he twists things around? This is how Alex Jones does this. Donald Trump says something negative about Alex Jones, and Alex Jones twists that into Trump endorses the Onion deal and facilitated it. Trump fired AG Pam Bondi in early April and replaced her with Todd Blanche as acting AG. Jones claims Blanche killed an investigation by Ed Martin, who Jones says was looking into the lawsuits against InfoWars. I see. Jones' exact framing with this was apparently Blanche killed the criminal investigation into what they were doing to me and shut down Ed Martin. There's no independent corroboration of any of that. It's completely made up. There probably wasn't even an investigation in the first place. Jones also has ties to Paul Weiss, the law firm that was sued by Donald Trump to shut them up, noting that they both represented Sandy Hook families against him and were involved in litigation against Trump before settling. That's interesting. Okay.
I didn't blame Trump for that, but I do now blame Trump for coming out and openly endorsing their lawsuits and saying I deserve it, when it was the very same law firms that sued him, Paul Weiss, that are running all of this. That's what represents the Onion turds. So Trump has now openly joined forces with the Democrat Party.
That's nonsense. He didn't. He just said, I don't like Alex Jones. That's pretty much it.
To shut down InfoWars, and it's just beyond disgusting. Absolutely blows me away. But I hope Grok can get it right. I hope everybody reading at the top of X with tens of thousands of posts can understand that when you go watch Ben Collins, the podcast he did today, he goes, I own the studios, we're in control now. Well, they have a hearing about it on the 30th, and we'll be challenging that. They're not even allowed to do that because it's still on appeal. They'll have massive damages against them if it gets overturned, which it will. Supreme Court's already signaled that in Texas.
Okay, yeah, gonna get overturned, absolutely. You're going to win at the end of the day, right? Right, Alex?
But they don't care, folks. This is the insanity of these people. But regardless, they tried to take my real Alex Jones handle on X. Remember, Elon had to come in and block that because X wouldn't be safe if he didn't. So you'll be able to follow us there at Real Alex Jones on X and at AJN Live and on Rumble, the Alex Jones Show. You'll find out about the new website, the new sites, all of it. As far as I was.
Now he's cramming his stuff down your throat. Anyway, wow, that's interesting. He is fully turned on Trump. He's blaming Trump for something that is not Trump's fault in any way, shape, or form. This is the evidence that we needed that he has turned on Trump. When he finds an enemy, he blames everything on that enemy. Donald Trump just said, I don't like Alex Jones, basically. That was the extent of it. And now he's blaming Trump for facilitating the Onion intellectual property purchase and closing an investigation on, people who are persecuting him and all kinds of shit. That's wild, dude. What a fool. I appreciate the infighting, though. That's fantastic. Tell me what you think in the comments.
We'll be right back. Don't forget to check out my Patreon. Also, take a look at my website, oamorgan.com. I just finished writing a book titled Was Hitler an Atheist? It talks about religions during the Third Reich and how they work together. Catholics, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Protestants. And I even address the lies told by the evangelical world about Bonhoeffer. It's on Audible and Amazon.
Tucker Carlson had a conversation with apparently his brother. This is his brother, Buckley. He looks like Donald Trump. He looks like he painted his face orange. Anyway, he said something really fascinating in this conversation. Check this out.
You and I and everyone else who supported him, you wrote speeches for him, I campaigned for him. I mean, we're implicated in this for sure.
Yeah, Buckley was a Trump speechwriter.
Yes. It's not enough to say, well, I changed my mind, or like, oh, this is bad, I'm out. It's like in very small ways, but in real ways, you and me and millions of people like us are the reason this is happening right now.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. You're completely to blame. One of the big problems here, though, is that Tucker still holds the same vile, hateful, evil views that he held before. He still believes black people are inferior. He still believes, God, all of the insane QAnon garbage. Nicotine is actually good for you secretly, and the deep state's trying to hide it. That the vaccine was actually bad for you all along, and there are higher cancer rates because of it. All nonsensical trash. If these people reversed course on all of the vile, disgusting garbage that they believed, I might appreciate that and accept them into the movement. But they haven't. They don't like Trump. That's it.
So I do think it's like a moment to wrestle with our own consciences. We'll be tormented by it for a long time. I will be. And I want to say I'm sorry for misleading people. It was not intentional. That's all I'll say. But anyway, the question does present itself immediately, like, what is this? Was this always the plan? You don't want to be a conspiracy nut, but like, clearly there were signs of low character. We knew that.
Yes.
But it didn't, there are tons of people of low character who like outperform their character. It doesn't have to.
Don't you love his stupid laugh? Yeah, Trump has low character, but maybe I would argue possibly the lowest character person. Let me rephrase. The biggest scumbag that has ever been president. That is a tall claim, and I'm gonna have to think about that and back that up with evidence if I'm gonna make that claim. Andrew Jackson was pretty evil, and many others. But Trump is bottom of the barrel bad, and you knew that. He has no right being anywhere near the presidency.
But like, clearly there were signs of low character. We knew that.
Yes.
But it didn't, there are tons of people of low character who like outperform their character. It doesn't have to be
sort of the norm, actually, these days. I would say.
Not like Donald Trump.
Outperform my character a lot. I don't have especially high character, right? But you try to you try your best. But what was this? Was this always the plan?
Looking back after the last year and a half, it seems like it kind of was, and it's easy. Well, you could get really deep about it and say, what was Butler? Like, how was it that and Ryan Ruth? I mean, he was subject to 2 legitimate assassination attempts. Have we ever gotten to the bottom? I know you've talked a lot about this, but have we ever gotten to the bottom of that? I haven't
talked a lot about it. I don't.
That's weird. He said 2 legitimate assassination attempts. I believe they were both legitimate as well. I think it's too far-fetched to think that they were fake, honestly. But what's he even saying here? Like, what point is he trying to make here?
Don't know the answer, but I know that those investigations have been stymied. Fact.
Yeah, stymied from the very top.
I don't think the investigations were stymied. We learned plenty about that kid. What the hell was his name? The one who shot his ear? We learned plenty about him. People keep saying we know nothing about him. We know tons about him. Like, reporters on the ground went around to his friends at school and asked them questions and stuff. What more do we want to know about the kid?
People who actually would have the power to get to the bottom of it.
And the motive.
Feeling. Yes.
Yeah.
Very much. So
are they implying it's Israel that tried to kill him or something?
The enormous amount of money he got from Miriam Adelson now seems suspect to a lot of people at the time.
There you go. Miriam Adelson was, what the hell was her husband's name? Not Roger Ailes. Something, I don't remember her husband's name, but he ran Fox News, I believe, or owned it or something, and now she's giving him hundreds of millions of dollars to do whatever Israel says, basically. She's a Zionist extremist, basically.
But, there's a lot of money in politics. To run for president requires an enormous, Kathleen Camel-Toe went through $2 billion and...
I'm sorry, what? What did you just call her?
President requires an enormous... Kathleen Camel-Toe went through $2 billion.
Why? Why would you call her that? That's such a cringy name to put to her. Rupert Murdoch, that was the name. God, could not remember. What a horrifyingly disturbing and cringy name to give Kamala. And what's the point? Usually there's some reason why you give somebody a name. Sleepy Joe, because he was sleepy all the time, right? Crooked Hillary, because she was supposedly crooked. Why call her that, of all things?
In politics, to run for president requires an enormous, I mean, Cackling Camel Toe went through $2 billion in 4 months. So, sure.
I mean, she raised, I think, $1 billion or maybe $2 billion for her presidential election fund and spent that on advertising like every other president in human history has ever done, or in U.S. history. That's how it works. So are you saying there's corruption there or something?
Sure. There's an argument to be made that you get money from those who will give it to you. It's just the nature of that game. But it's still reprehensible, and it's still a big question mark. Why would someone who has obvious and demonstrated allegiance to a foreign power give Donald Trump $250 million while he's running for president? I mean, how is that defensible?
Talking about Adelson, Miriam Adelson. Yeah, that's not defensible. Why didn't you say that at the time? Why are you just now, a year later, bringing that up?
It's really not. If Russia had given a PAC for Trump, you know, if the mayor of Moscow had somehow, you know, assembled an enormous amount of money and put it in a 501c3 for Trump's benefit, would that have been acceptable? Of course it wouldn't have been. So what does someone, it's so basic, comes back to the money. Like, what did they get in return for that amount of investment? And it's clear.
I get it. No, I mean, of course, I agree.
I think he's talking about Miriam Adelson giving Trump $200 million, right? It's obvious that she was basically saying, all I need you to do is support Israel in what they want to do. And it brought him into a full-blown war as a result.
I agree with every word that you're saying. I just think, given his behavior and his demonstrated disloyalty and viciousness to previous supporters,
yes,
why wouldn't he display the same lack of loyalty to Miriam Adelson? I mean, that's kind of the question. The only people he's been loyal to are the neocons and his donors.
That's interesting, right?
I mean, that's kind of the question. The only people he's been loyal to are the neocons and his donors.
Miriam Adelson doesn't come out and say negative things about Donald Trump, but Tucker does. So you're pretending that he was disloyal to you when you were loyal to him. Well, you said negative things about him, and you didn't support him in the things that he wanted to do, obviously. That's why his loyalty waned effectively. But aside from that, you know, Miriam Adelson and all of the other Zionists, Christian Zionists especially, are so toxic to our political environment. So insanely toxic. Anyway, it's really interesting to watch Tucker turn on Trump in real time. And Buckley here is one of Trump's speechwriters, or was. He is effectively like Goebbels for Hitler, in that he forms out the way that he frames issues and the things that he should focus on and stuff. Fascinating to watch these two turn on him. Tell me what you think in the comments. That's all I've got for you. If you like what I do and you want to see me continue to do it, don't forget to check me out on Patreon. I just finished writing a book titled Was Hitler an Atheist? It talks about religions during the Third Reich and how they work together. Catholics, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Protestants. And I even address the lies told by the evangelical world about Bonhoeffer. It's on Audible and Amazon. Okay, thanks for watching, guys.